All right, well, I guess we'll get started. We have some participants. So hi, everyone. I'm Julia Costello from CS Source. Welcome to our first session of our Lunch and Learn series. Today we've got Wynn Reese from CAPTECH, and we're excited to have her with us. And CAPTECH has been a committed partner with us since 2012, and so we're happy to have them today. They are a national IT management consulting firm headquartered in Richmond and have several other locations as well. So, Wynn, would you like to begin?
Sure. Thanks so much, Julia. And thanks to everyone who's on the call this dreary, rainy day. I'm in Richmond, Virginia, so not too far up the road. But what we're going to talk about today is negotiating offers. So some of you might have received a job offer and you feel like it's not quite what you had in mind. Others might have multiple job offers in hand and you're trying to compare those different options. So we're going to talk through some different ways to navigate that situation. I'm going to fill you in a little bit about CAPTECH, and then I want to leave plenty of time at the end to answer all your questions. So you can, if you have questions throughout, feel free to raise your hand in the chat thing or the participant list, and I think I can see if your hands are raised. You can also type in your question into the chat and I'll try to keep up with that. But I would love this to be as interactive as possible, even though we can't all see one another. So a little bit about me. I am a Hokie. I graduated a couple years ago. It looks very different on campus than it did back in my day. But I've been at CAPTECH for about 9 years, and I oversee our college and intern recruiting program. All in all, I've got about 20 years of recruiting experience. Some of that has been really technical positions, and others have been more kind of corporate recruiting, like my company's employees. But I've literally extended over 1,000 offers. So definitely got a lot of experience with people who have negotiated, who are comparing offers, who have lots of questions. So hopefully some of the information that I share with you can help you as you're getting offers. Again, I'm in Richmond. I'm socially distanced with my significant other, who's luckily at his office today, so he won't be walking back and forth behind me. I do have a dog behind me and a cat who runs throughout the house and sometimes pounces on me during presentations. So just a heads up, but I'm enjoying all this time to get in my workouts. I've been doing lots of running and virtual fitness classes and walking the dog a lot. So that's just a little bit about me. And want to fill you in a little bit about CAPTECH. Like Julia said, we're an IT management consulting firm. So we help other businesses solve technical problems that they might be having, or it might be a business problem that we're coming in to solve using technology. So we work with a lot of big Fortune 500 companies and a variety of industries, retail, hospitality, those industries obviously taking a bit of a hit right now, but also working with a lot of financial institutions and healthcare agencies who are really trying to navigate these crazy COVID times. So we're able to help them with some of their projects. So that's been pretty exciting. We're able to really help streamline efforts and hopefully make things like contactless business something that's easier for companies to adapt to moving forward. So we're really big believers in diversity, not only of our employees, but also skills, because we know that all of our skills put together are going to help companies thrive, especially in crazy times like these. So some of the areas where we recruit on campus, you might see us at the career fairs. We typically go to CSRC, which I think the name has changed now, as well as Business Horizons. We hire folks that are interested in the kind of the business side, the management consultants. Those are your project managers, your business analysts. So we've hired quite a few folks, especially from Business Horizons, that are interested in kind of this type of career path. Where we hire a lot of folks like you is in our systems integration practice area. Those are our developers, our software engineers. So we do a lot of mobile work. We also do front end, back end development. We do a lot of work in the cloud with DevOps. So we've got quite a few CS majors at CAPTECH who are in this area. We also have a customer experience area. So if companies want their websites to be maybe a little more user friendly, or maybe their mobile apps just, they're getting bad reviews because the customers aren't having a great experience, we're really able to help with that side of things, with that design, with that strategy. So we do have some CS majors that tend to be drawn to this area as well, especially the ones that like that kind of visual aspect. And then lastly, our data and analytics practice area is a large one, and that's where a lot of CMDA graduates from tech fall into this category. And also some computer science folks. Data engineering has kind of that combination of data analytics and development. So that's a little bit about CAPTECH and the types of opportunities that we hire college students for our internship and our full-time opportunities. But let's dive into the heart of the negotiation discussion. So maybe you're given an offer, and there's a few reasons that you want to negotiate. Maybe you have friends that work at that company and you know what they make, or they've told you about the salary structure at that company and you feel like what you were offered isn't quite up to par. Maybe you've done your research and you know that, hey, I'm a software engineer in Northern Virginia, and the going rate for someone with less than a year of experience is this, and that's not what I offered. So I want to what I was offered. So I want to negotiate that. Maybe you know exactly what you need to make to afford to live in a certain place and to pay your bills. And so you have a number in your head. And again, that number isn't what's being offered. Or maybe just someone's told you you should always negotiate. Don't leave anything on the table. So maybe that's why you want to negotiate. But the bottom line is that you need to be tactful about it. So I would typically, sit on that offer that you get for a little bit. You don't want to, if an employer makes you an offer, that same conversation, you don't want to say, great, thanks, but can I get more money? Or great, thanks, is that negotiable? No, I would thank them for the offer, let them know that you're really appreciative of the offer, you're excited about the opportunity, and let them know that you'll get back to them, and make sure you find out what that deadline is to get back to that employer. Chances are that deadline is written in the offer letter, or they'll verbally tell you. If you don't see that, make sure you ask, like, when do I need to get back to you? And then I would really think about that offer. And if if it's all that criteria we talked about before, if it doesn't seem like the right amount of money, or you feel like, hey, you know what, I just got to give this a go, then you schedule a time to talk to that recruiter or that employer and say, hey, I'm really excited about this offer you presented, and I feel like I bring a great deal to this role, but I was hoping we could talk a little bit more about salary. Or maybe you're okay with the salary, but there's other things in the offer that you want to talk a little bit more about. Does anybody have any ideas of other things that you might be considering negotiating with an employer about? You want to raise your hand or jot any notes down in the chat? Time off. Yeah, that's a good one. Benefits, location, bonus. Yeah, you guys are awesome. Stock. Yeah. Did you guys see my next slides? That's awesome. Those are all the things that I wanted to hit on. Salary obviously seems the most obvious. That's what people think of the first thing. Okay, I want to negotiate that money. But you want to make sure when you're negotiating salary that you really are comparing apples to apples. Make sure that if you're thinking about, okay, well, this position pays $100,000 in DC, and another position is paying $80,000 in Richmond, that's really about the same. So if you're thinking salary, you don't want to go back to that Richmond offer and say, yeah, I need $100,000 because that's what I'm getting offered in DC. Well, that doesn't matter. Like, that's not the same. So make sure that you're negotiating under the right terms. You've done your research, and make sure that your level that you're coming in seems appropriate for the job. So if you've talked to somebody else in the company that's been there for 6 years and they're making $100,000 and your offers for 80,000, well, it's not really comparing, again, apples to apples. That person's got a lot more experience. So make sure you've really kind of researched the position, the location, even the industry itself, to make sure that the offer is being fair and it's in line with your expectations. And then if not, again, that's when you want to start negotiating. But like you all said, Tamid said bonus. Yes, that's a huge thing that you can try to negotiate. Is the company offering a sign-on bonus? Are they offering a relocation bonus? Even if they are, and you feel like, well, maybe I could get a little bit more of a bonus, ask, just say, hey, I'm really excited about this opportunity, but I was hoping, that the relocation bonus could be a little bit more. I have to move from here to here, and my estimated costs are this amount, and you've offered this amount. Can we talk about possibly a little bit more money? Same with a sign-on bonus. A company might not offer a sign-on bonus, but if they don't, maybe you can say, hey, is there any possibility to get a sign-on bonus in order to get me a little bit closer to what I was hoping to make overall compensation? Another thing to think about too is a performance bonus. And although that can't necessarily be negotiated, it is something you want to take in mind when you're comparing job offers. So if one company is offering you $100,000 with no chance for bonuses, and the other company is offering you $80,000 with the opportunity for yearly performance bonuses, first you want to find out, well, what's the average performance bonus? Like, if it's 2%, then yeah, that's not a ton. But if companies are saying like, hey, you might get up to 10% of your base salary in a performance bonus, and that number can continue to rise. So the higher up you move in that company, you might make more and more and more off performance bonuses. Well, that might get you well above $100,000 much faster than that other company that's starting you at $100,000, and you might just be stuck there for a while. So that's something to definitely consider. Again, if they don't offer a performance bonus, they're probably not going to start offering it. So it's not something to negotiate as much as it is something to consider when you're weighing your different options. Benefits, another thing. Connor mentioned that one, and that's everything from your health benefits to your paid time off, like Timothy said. Some companies, especially like your smaller startups, they might be willing to negotiate those things a little bit more. They might give you a couple extra days of vacation or paid time off. They might say, hey, we'll cover a little bit more of your health insurance costs. Or maybe if you're married and you can get your partner's benefits, you don't need that company's health benefits. So maybe you can say, hey, I don't even need your health benefits. Could I get a little bit more in salary? So again, not all companies are going to be able to negotiate that, but it's certainly worth asking, and some of them are able to do that. Aishan, I'm not so sure if I'm saying your name right. Aishan, you mentioned stock. Yeah, that's another big one. Is the company public? Can you get stock or equity? Is it a startup that'll let you, kind of buy into that company? Does the company offer a 401k plan, and do they match that at all? And is that matching amount negotiable? Or again, maybe even if it's not negotiable, something to consider when looking at two different jobs. If company A doesn't offer any stock equity for a lot of money on the table, because if company B, maybe they pay a little bit less, but they're giving you, stock, or they're contributing to your 401k, that's worth a ton of money in the long run. I mean, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars over the course of, even just a few years. So definitely something to consider. And then another area that you might want to consider negotiating are things like, is the company in a large parking lot that you have to pay to park? Maybe they would consider paying for your parking, or maybe they'd split the cost with you. Some companies are doing things like reimbursing people for time that they spend on public transportation. If it's not something they, offer, then something you could certainly bring up. If you're looking at two companies, one has a paid parking deck and they're offering to pay, and the other doesn't have that offer to split that cost with you, that's something to think about with overall total compensation. You really want to think about, what are you making at year end with all of these factors? Salary is just one little part of it. You really want to think about total compensation. And you really want to make sure that you get all of these things nailed down before you sign any offer letter, because all of these things are going to have to be written into the offer letter. You can't sign the offer letter, give it back to the recruiter, and then like a month later be like, hey, can I get a sign-on bonus? Like, it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. You got to get all those items negotiated before you sign that offer. So what are some other things, maybe not necessarily things that you think you might be able to negotiate, but other things that you think you might want to consider when you're looking at two different companies? Anybody have any ideas? Y'all nailed this last one, so I have faith in you. Location, good one. Work culture, also good. Growth within the company, yeah, for sure. Yeah, again, y'all are good at this game. So yeah, location's huge. One, you want to be enjoying where you're living. Dress code is another one. If your ideal location is New York City and you get a job in Oklahoma City, it's like, okay, like that's something you really want to think about. Like, this is your life ahead of you, or at least a year or two of it. Is this job something that you want to relocate to that particular area for? And what is it going to cost you to live in that area? So like we talked a little bit about before, you really want to make sure you're comparing apples to apples. I cannot say it enough how much my biggest pet peeve is somebody who asks for more money that's relocating to Richmond from Northern Virginia because they want the same amount they were making in Northern Virginia. I'm like, it doesn't work like that. Literally everything from your rent, your groceries, gas, even like doggy daycare is almost twice as much in Northern Virginia as it is in Richmond. So all of those things come into play when it comes to jobs that we're able to offer. Companies just don't pay as much in some markets versus others. So if you're making about $72,000 in Richmond, for example, that's $50,000 in Northern Virginia. Say you're in Blacksburg and you're making $50,000 and you want to move to San Francisco, you need at least double that. And I would even say in some cases triple. And that's just comparing, that's just living the same type of lifestyle. That's not, moving to a better neighborhood or buying better groceries or premium gas. That's literally just maintaining the same quality of life. Travel and commute, which are two very different things. Sometimes people kind of clump them into the same thing, but it's two different things. By travel, it's a company saying, we want you to be on the road for us Monday through Friday, and you're just back at home on the weekends. But during the week, you're out and about. You're either flying to visit clients or other branches of the company, or you're driving. Some people love that. Some people really want to travel. And if that's something that you're looking for, great. But think about, okay, how do I pay for that travel? Am I getting a company credit card? Or maybe you don't company credit card. Like, I love to be able to expense my own hotel rooms and then get the points. And then when I go on a personal vacation, I've got all these points racked up from when I traveled using my own credit card. But if you're not in a position to pay that credit card back before you get your expense check from the company, that could be an issue. So, make sure you know if traveling is something that you're interested in, and then how all that travel is paid for. Does the company pay it up front, or do they reimburse you later for that? By commute, I mean your actual commute into your home office. That can greatly affect your quality of life. If you're in the car for 2 hours in traffic every day, even if that company paid $10,000 more than another company that's closer to your house, I mean, think about that. Like, what's worth more to you, your time or your money? And I'm actually taking, I don't know if y'all have heard about this class, but Science of Well-Being class that's being, it's taught by a professor at Yale University. They're doing it online through Coursera, and it's super interesting. But just yesterday, we learned about time versus money. And most people think that having more money is going to make them happier. But when they've researched tons of people, they've realized that in the long run, people are happier when they have more time. So think about that. And when you're comparing different job offers, like, gosh, do I really want to sit in the car for this long? And that might even affect the location. Maybe I don't want to move to New York City after all, or maybe I don't want to be in DC. Maybe Richmond is sounding a little bit better. I'm from Northern Virginia, and I moved to Richmond, and I've never looked back. Like, I've never had to, be in the car more than 20 minutes to get to work unless there's a big crash. But when I was up in Northern Virginia, I mean, it easily would take an hour just to like run an errand down the street. So to me, I know that time is more valuable to me. We talked about work culture. And part of that, again, kind of go into your own personal beliefs and your how you spend your day, but you also want to make sure that the actual company culture itself is enjoyable. It's what you're looking for. What do people at the company have to say about it? You can read Glassdoor reviews. You can see what your friends are posting on, social media. What do when you went in to interview, and maybe now you're interviewing over video, but what's the vibe that you're getting from this company? I mean, never second guess your gut instinct. I think that's really, really valuable. If you meet somebody that you just don't click with and you're like, oh gosh, I really just don't know if I could work with that person. I mean, really think about that. Is that the culture that you want to be in and day out? We talked a little bit about dress code. Somebody commented that that's something to think about. And yeah, if you know you're going to have to wear a suit every day and you hate suits, that might not be the best company for you. I used to always hear that people really wanted to be able to work virtually. And it's interesting because with the whole COVID situation and we're all working virtually, I think a lot of people are like, oh, I kind of want to be able to go back into the office or at least have that option. So think about what types of things are important to you when it comes to your kind of your interests and how you're going to be most happy. And part of that also, what we touched on, is that work-life balance, being in the car too much, but also the hours that you work. If the company is expecting you to work 60 or 70 hours a week, and maybe you're on call on the weekends, and it's paying $20,000 more than that other job that's offering, 40 hours a week, it's like, well, it kind of evens out. If you break it down by what you'd be getting paid hourly, chances are it's about the same. So really think about, what do you want your quality of life to look like? Maybe you're moving to a new city, you want to make a ton of money and you don't care. You're just going to work all the time. Well, then fine. Like, that's fine. Starting out, that's what you want to do. But as you work at that company longer and longer, you could potentially start burning out. And the problem could be that now you're used to making this certain amount of money, and you go to find another job and this company is saying, hey, but our culture is great, our work-life balance is great, you're not going to make quite as much, but this is what we offer. That can be a hard kind of mind adjustment to think like, oh gosh, but I'm used to like raking in all this dough. Oh, I can't spend it because I've got too much going on, but at work, but I'm making a ton of money. So, before you take that, even that very first job that's offering you a ton of money and expecting you to work all these hours, think about, okay, how am I going to adjust to this long term? If you're getting paid a ton and you're working a lot, set some of that money aside. So then the next job that you get might not pay quite as much, but it's going to kind of even out that work-life balance. So those are just some areas that I would consider you all, or I would encourage you all to consider. Think about the different companies that are offering you these opportunities. Think about, all of those factors like your location, the travel, the hours, the culture, as well as, what the job is, obviously, and benefits and bonus opportunities. But really make sure you're thinking about that overall total compensation, not just that one base salary number. Like I said, I wanted to make sure that I left plenty of time at the end to answer all of your questions. And it can be specifically around negotiating or considering different offers. It could be, I've been a recruiter for a long time. If you just have questions that you've always wanted to ask recruiters, fire away. And I am happy to either call on you if you raise your hand, or you can type it into the chat. Julia, is there anything on your end? Oh, wait, here we are. When you review, I've got one right here from Nadia, and then I'll go back to what I was going to ask Julia. Nadia said, when you review resumes, what part of the resume are you most likely to pay attention to, the GPA or the work internship experience? I would say definitely work and internship experience. We want to see, at least at CAPTECH and most places where I've worked, we want to see examples of you working in teams. We want to see examples of when you've had to learn different things, work in different types of environments. That internship and work experience, I think, is so helpful. The GPA, sure, we'll look at, but it's really not weighed nearly as heavily. Timothy, you have a question?
I was just going to ask, as far as hours, that kind of weird benefit, or when you're examining companies, if you're going to be working more of the 40-hour or more of the overtime route. I have a slight bit of experience, and I've noted that more often than not, hours seem to go over the 40-hour limit. And if you're salaried, usually there's no, it's salaried exempt, so there's no overtime compensation. Mm-hmm. Is there a way to navigate that conversation up front when, say, you're past the interview process and you've had a chance to maybe talk with, maybe future members of a team, and you kind of get that sense? Is there a way to talk about that in terms of compensation or anything like that? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, I think that finding out a realistic amount of hours that someone should be expecting to work is definitely a great thing that's something where Glassdoor reviews, talking to people that work at a company. I think that's really important to do as much research as you can ahead of time, put in your legwork and figure out, okay, what are realistic hours that people at this company are working? And most jobs, I think you're probably going to work 40 to 45 hours a week. I think that's pretty standard. The tricky part is, okay, so if you're at a company that's paying performance bonuses and you're consistently working over 40 hours a week, that typically is something that will get recognized in a performance bonus. Someone's going to be like, wow, Timothy always is going above and beyond. He's here till 6, 7 o'clock every night. We need to make sure that we give him more of a higher performance bonus this next cycle. If the company doesn't offer performance bonuses, if everyone in the company is kind of working those same hours, I think you now know the culture of that company. You're just going to have to put in some extra hours. And you kind of run the risk of being the 9 to 5 clock puncher if you speak up too much about it, which is the tricky part. If you're finding that you're the one that's consistently putting in more hours and other people aren't, then yeah, I think it's totally acceptable to talk to your manager about like, hey, you know what, I'm really enjoying, this job. I'm finding that I'm really putting in though about 45 to 50 hours a week. Is that something that you all would consider the next time you're thinking about a bump in my salary? And I think it could be something you could negotiate at that point.
I see.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that kind of hits on it.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Okay, great. We have a question from, I keep screwing up your name. I'm sorry, Ashan. Is it true that it's better to get a job in Northern Virginia right away after graduating than to spend 1 to 2 years in Blacksburg than moving to Northern Virginia because recruiters are going to pay you less since your expense expectations is less? I think that that's where you really need to do your research. And if you feel like you're getting, like a company is giving you a low offer, then that's when you say like, hey, I'd like to talk a little bit more about the salary being offered. My research shows that this position in Northern Virginia with this amount of experience should pay closer to this amount. I don't think that recruiters are specifically like targeting people and trying to give lowball offers based on where they live. I would just think about, I think it's more about the work. So maybe if you're in Blacksburg for 2 years doing something that's not in your industry, well, then you might get a lower offer. But if you're doing something in Blacksburg that's still in your industry and you're getting 1 to 2 years of experience under your belt and then moving to Northern Virginia, the offer should be, the same as if you've been in Northern Virginia all along. I don't think there's necessarily that it's better to get a job in Northern Virginia right away. I just think you want to make sure that the work that you're doing, if you stay in Blacksburg, is meaningful. I mean, I stayed in Blacksburg for about 6 months after graduation, but I was waiting tables. So that wasn't really super valuable. I didn't have a lot of leverage there, but I really just didn't want to leave. So, you have to think about what you're doing. Can you talk more about the differences between your entry-level development and data analytics positions? Sure. So our developers, so everyone that we hire at CAPTECH are consultants, first and foremost. So we don't hire anybody that just is in the corner coding by themselves. And by consulting, I mean, we're interacting with clients. So if a client says, my mobile app is terrible, we want to find out, okay, why do you think that? We want to get to the root of that problem, and then we want to fix it and make that mobile app more robust based on the research that we found and why we think there's something wrong with it. So an entry-level developer might come in and do the actual hands-on coding part of that project, but also interacting with the client and interacting with the project managers on the team and the business analysts to say, okay, these are the problems the client's having. This is how we think we can fix it. So the developers are working on that and showing it to the client and saying, hey, this is what we've done here. This is how we think it's going to improve your current mobile app. And your data analysts are doing more things like they're working with the clients to, like, for example, we work with a large utility company, and they've got power that they send out to certain grids at certain times of day based on usage. So they think, okay, people in this neighborhood typically work till 5 p.m. We're going to send, we're going to not send them that much power, during like midday, and at around 5 or 6, we're going to start sending more power that way. Our data analysts are helping figure out what areas need power at what time and communicating that with the client, and then running, their SQL reports, and they're working in, different technologies to figure out this data and, or maybe figure out like what to do with this data. Maybe this, you know, this utility company's been collecting this all along, but now they don't know what to do with it. So we're helping them kind of figure that out. So it's kind of a dual role. You're doing software development or data analytics, but you're also communicating and sharing those ideas with a client and really being kind of that subject matter expert. What other questions? Maybe we have about 5 minutes left.
I have one more question.
Sure.
So currently I'm in graduate school, so I've been primarily focused towards research. So I heard consultants. How does that translate for someone that's probably been primarily doing research? What are the opportunities there, I guess?
Yeah. So research is a little different. We, you know, a lot of the, you know, we have hired some folks that have been research heavy, some folks even with like their PhD and their data scientists. It's very different than, I guess it depends on the type of research you're doing. If you're really involved with like a lab and you're not, you know, and you're more, I guess, kind of focused on numbers and the data and in the weeds with that, that can be a little bit different than being able to talk to a client about what to practically do with this data. So I think it's more kind of on your mindset, like what is it about research that you like to be able to like really dig in and get in the weeds and figure out what this means and what this means and make reports and change maybe whole entire you know, ways that like industries could do things versus helping a certain client with their particular needs. Sure, you're going to draw on other industry knowledge. If you've worked on 2 projects, you know, you're always going to bring in things that you've learned, but it is a little different. Some people that have been very research heavy have not enjoyed consulting.
Good to know. Thank you.
I mean, not that I mean, I'm not saying that you wouldn't, but that is something to think about.
Right.
You might not be able to dig in as deep as you want necessarily. Who else out there? Anybody else have questions? Anything I didn't go over that you thought maybe we would discuss today? All right, I guess that's it.
Great. Well, Wynn, I would just really want to thank you so much for being with us and helping us to think more about what we need to think about when we negotiate offers. So I appreciate your being with us, and thank you to all the students for being here as well, and hope to see you next Tuesday with Capital One. Thank you, Wynn.
Thanks, Julia.